We're good. All right, so let me share my screen to welcome Esther. All right, so I've been waiting for this for quite some time now, but good afternoon to all of you. And I'm really honored and delighted to welcome you to today's edition. Welcome to YWL Summit 2021. And today is episode 4. Can you believe that we've had 3 fantastic sessions already? Yesterday was emotional and it was real. Thank you so much, Coach Rosemond, for that. And today we're going to have another hand-on-heart conversation based on a real life story as well. Today we're discussing open to change, believing in abundance. And as I always say, the premise for You Work Love is this Akan proverb that says, "Obiasem safwa to ubipono." It translates into someone's story may be the key that unlocks the door for another. All it's saying is that we can learn from each other's experience, and insights from another person's life story can be one that prepares us for our journey as well. So on You Work Love, we share branch out stories, and we say everybody has a branch out story. Is that moment where life throws a curveball at you, no matter how big or small, but when you take action in spite of, that's a branch out story. And the idea is to inspire hope and to motivate people to take action and move on with their lives. I'll start with a disclaimer as always. So we're not on this call as psychologists, counselors, psychiatrists. We are on this call as real human beings who've experienced something in particular, and we're sharing that experience. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome today's speaker to YWL 2021. Esther Mwahaki. Esther, I hope I mentioned the surname right. I've been practicing for some time now. So you see how I rush through pronouncing your surname. But Esther is the mother, she's a grandmother. So you can see she's a very beautiful woman. She's a mentor, a coach, and a business leader. Her greatest passion in life is to be a light to someone. And just to share a bit of fun fact with you, when she said this, and I said, "Do you want us to change someone to be a light to people?" She said to me, "No, it's actually about the one." And that's why it's highlighted there. It's someone. So if one person for her gets the inspiration to move on and change something or do something, that's Esther's life's purpose. So Esther, thank you for that. And her fun fact, she says she does it seriously in her bedroom. So I'm sure you will not find her dancing in the crowd, where she says in her bedroom, she's a serious dancer. I'm sure she's received a few awards in her bedroom by herself. All right, so Esther, thank you so much for joining us on YWL Summit 2021. It's an absolute honor and delight that you will join us to share your story. I'm going to stop sharing so that you can share. And then I'm actually also going to hide my face so that it's all about you and your story. So once you share, I would be gone, and then, and then you can have the space all to yourself. Over to you, Esther. I can see you, Esther. You're muted, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So I'm gonna just change my view so that I can be able to share my screen better.
Sure.
And this. Full screen.
I see you're looking for the presentation mode.
Yes.
All right, so just a bit of help over there. If you go to slide up there, slideshow.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not? Okay. Sometimes technology plays tricks.
Yes, sometimes technology plays something.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to reduce this so that there. I found it.
Fantastic. Fantastic. We won.
Okay. So thank you, Doreen. And it's really an honor to be part of this celebration. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful way of celebrating Doreen's birthday. For those who don't know, this is how Doreen has been celebrating her birthday. And it's really an honor to be part of this celebration, to give back, to be part of a community that she has built over time and keeps increasing. I'm really honored, and I honor you, and happy birthday again. So as Doreen said, my name is Esther Mwihaki, and I'm going to be speaking on the topic, open to change and believing in abundance. In the story of Alice in Wonderland, I don't know who has read that story. There's a white rabbit who says to the king, "Where shall I begin?" And the king answers, "Begin at the beginning," he says gravely, "and go up to the end, and then stop." So that is from Alice in Wonderland. So I am starting from the beginning, and the beginning as I remember it. We all have different beginnings, and our beginnings is really where we remember, because there are parts of our beginnings that we actually don't remember. So the first memories of myself is actually being in fear, a lot of fear. I seemed to just fear everything and everybody. I'm the fourth born in a family of 5. I have 3 brothers who are older than me, and I'm the fourth born, but I'm the firstborn girl. And then I have a sister who comes after me. My mother tells me that she wanted 4 children, but when she got 3 boys, and then when I was born and I was a girl, she decided I cannot be the only girl and the last one. So she decided to get another baby just so that I wasn't the last one. And as it happened, a lot of my cousins on my father's side, because those are the ones I spent a lot of time with, the older ones were all boys. So I grew up with a lot of boys, very many boys. And they were rough. And they just used to look at me like sort of a specimen. Now, my father doesn't have sisters. He didn't have sisters. So he also, in his family, there were only boys. So as I came onto the scene, I was quite a specimen, even to my father. So everybody treated me in different ways. My parents never beat me. I guess given the things the boys used to do, they just didn't have any reason to beat me. But my brothers were beaten seriously. And when I saw how my brothers were beaten, I thought, if I'm beaten like this, I'll just die. So, but I got enough beating from my brothers and my cousins. And I was always crying. Somehow I found myself all the time I was crying. Either they were snatching food from me, they were snatching things from me. And my mother would, like just push me aside and say, go away, you foolish child. And my brothers then picked up this foolish child thing, and they also started calling me foolish. So everybody called me foolish. And it was always, go away, you foolish girl. Just go away, you foolish person. And I could hardly express myself. I had a bad stutter. So every time we quarreled with my brother and I'd run to my mother to report him, I would not be able to express myself. I would go, mama, 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 and then my brother would come in and say, mama, 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 and I would never finish. So I would end up just crying. And that just reiterated the foolishness. And my mother would say, you're so foolish, and everybody was like, you can't express yourself. So it became worse and worse and worse until I kept quiet. And I stopped, literally just stopped talking. And I wasn't expressing myself and I wasn't talking very much. So I remember my childhood at that time being very, very fearful. And especially because I couldn't say how I was feeling, what was going on. I just feared everybody, and it was safer for me to just be quiet. And when I went to school, I didn't really expect much of myself. Not much was expected of me either. So I didn't really care. It's not that I didn't care. I wasn't even aware of competition. I wasn't aware that I should aspire to anything. So whatever position I came in class, it was neither here nor there for me. And until I started learning to read. And when I learned how to read, I became completely absorbed in books. I read everything that I could get hold of. I read so much. And my teachers often had to go out and look for books for me. And I just enjoyed reading. I enjoyed reading so much that even the books for class, whether it was history or geography, it wasn't a task for me. It was just fun reading. I just wanted to read. And as I read, my imagination just kept growing and growing, and I would disappear into these places that I was reading about. And I remember it was so good because then I would disappear because I felt, to use Doreen's words, unseen and unheard. And now it didn't bother me anymore because then I was left alone to do my reading. And then one day, what I didn't realize was that as I read, as my imagination grew, as I just devoured knowledge, all my subjects, I became better in all my subjects. And when I was in class 3, I remember a teacher then called me out and she said, I'm going to divide the class into, you teach one side and I'll teach the other side. And it was an English lesson. And so I taught one side and she taught the other side. And I didn't think much about it. It was significant because I'd never been singled out in class. Then when I went to class 4, the first term, I was sitting somewhere, we used to be lined up when we did exams. And I was sitting somewhere in the middle somewhere, and the teacher came and picked my hand and led me to the front of the class. And as she led me to the front of the class, I asked her, does this mean that I'm number 1? And she said, yes, you're number 1. We realized that we had marked your history paper wrong, and you actually got 100%. I had gotten 100% in all the subjects. And at that moment, I was so stunned because I looked back and I thought, everybody must be so foolish. If I'm number one and I'm foolish, how foolish must everybody else in this class be? And as I sat there thinking about it, then I thought, but if I had 100% in every subject, how can I be foolish? And at that moment, I realized something was incongruent with everything I had believed up to that point. And I was just quiet. I was sitting there in front of the class, just very quiet, thinking, what has just happened? But one thing was for sure, something shifted inside of me. I think something happened that told me what I have been believing might not be very true. And so as I continued to question, one day I realized that a miracle had happened. I was not stammering anymore. When I realized that I wasn't foolish, somehow I stopped stammering. The stammer went, and I could now express myself. And I got more confident. Nothing at home actually changed. At home, everything remained the same. I continued being treated exactly the way I was being treated before. I continued being unseen and unheard. And I continued being called foolish, but something had shifted in me and I knew different. And I was more confident. But it's like I had two lives now. I had the life in school, which I loved and I enjoyed. I was made a prefect and I became even more confident. And throughout, from that moment on, my grades really improved. I was doing better. I was doing great things in school. I was in plays. I was now singing, and I came to myself. And when we finally did our final exams for primary school, I remember my dad asking me, "So what do you think you're going to get?" And I said to him, "I'm going to get all A's. I have no doubt about it. I'm going to get all A's in these exams." And it's like when I was in school, I belonged somewhere else and I could be myself. And when I came home, I kept quiet. And there's a story I remember reading those days, the story of the ugly duckling. And I'm just going to summarize it because it's a long story, which I love. There's a story about a duckling that was hatched with other ducklings. And the mother duck, the other mother ducks looked at this duckling and said, "What an ugly duckling. It doesn't look like the others." And the brother and sister ducklings would really bully this duckling. And eventually, even the mother could not protect the duckling. And this duckling ran away from home. And one day, this duckling looked up to the sky and saw some other creatures. And this duckling kept running away. And one day, he was in a lake. And these creatures that he had seen were also in the lake. And they were swimming, and he thought, they're going to come and attack me. But instead, they came and they hugged him. And he looked at himself in the reflection of the water. And he saw that he looked exactly like the other creatures. And at that moment, he realized he never was a duckling. He always was a swan. And everybody else thought he should have looked like a duckling, and therefore he was ugly. But he never was like everyone else. He was always different because he was a swan. And he also learned that he didn't have to belong to the duckling tribe anymore. So this is what happened to me. There's this girl who came to visit the village from the city. And she was, in my view, very beautiful, very exciting. And I talked to her and I was so excited there was just something about her. And I asked her, where do you go to school? And she said that she went to this girl's school, and she told me about her school. And this school sounded so exciting. And I decided, this is where I'm going to school. I had never heard of that school. Nobody in my village had ever gone to that school. Nobody had ever mentioned it. It was not even in the panel of what the teachers used to give us to apply. So I went to school and I said, this is the school that I need to apply to. It was a national school. It was a high cost school, and I applied. And I also knew, because now I knew different, that I could go to any school. I could qualify to go to any school that I wanted to. And so I did. I applied and I got into the school. That year that we did the primary school exams, I was the best. And indeed, I got the A's that I had promised my father. And I was the best student in the school. So when I was admitted to this school, I was so excited. Everybody in school was excited. And so I came home full of excitement and looking forward to going to join this school. And then something happened. My big brother, who he's not much older than me, but he was my big brother. He was like the father figure in my life, because my father worked in a different city and rarely came home. So when he came home, he was in boarding school, and he came home, and when he learned that I was going to this school, he was livid. He was furious, and he really told me off. And he said, "Who do you think you are? How dare you apply to this school? You know it's a high-cost school. You know our parents can barely afford it. You should never have applied to that school." And at that point, it was like my bubble just burst. And I felt really, really sad. I felt so sad about everything. My jubilation turned into horror. And I remember I cried that night. I cried the whole night. And I wondered how I could have been so unthinking. So some of these things that happen in childhood, I realized that it formed certain belief systems within myself. And one of the belief systems that it formed was guilt of success. I wondered how I could undo it. I wished I could have undone it so that I didn't punish my parents. So I felt guilty because of my success. I associated success with selfishness and pain for somebody else and causing discomfort to somebody else. So that was one of the belief systems that was birthed out of that. The other belief system that was birthed out of that was the guilt of wanting more. My wanting to actually get out there and be more, because I knew there was more. There was a part of me that said there is more, and now I had seen there was more. The books I read told me there was more. There was more than what I was experiencing in the village. But now I was guilty of wanting more. And then there was a big sense of unworthiness. I wasn't worthy of this girls' school. I wasn't worthy of going to this high-cost school. And so a sense of unworthiness, which was there even before. This was just now adding to what I already knew from my growing up, that I wasn't worthy of much. I wasn't worthy of attention. I wasn't worthy of anything really. So everybody had very low expectations of me. And when I showed that I could do better, it was like I was being pulled back to fit into the box that I had been put in, the box that said, you're not worthy of success. You're not worthy of much. So stay in your box. Don't try it and get out. So that belief system had a lot of implications for my life. Even as I went on to this school, which I loved, by the way, and it was a great school at the time. The who is who was in this school, including the president's daughter, the minister's daughters, the PSs, everybody who was actually in that school. And the exposure was amazing. So as I went to this school, somehow I started sabotaging myself. And instead of really focusing, when I was doing my mock exams, I would literally not go to class sometimes. And I remember my history teacher calling me to the staff room and telling me, why do you want to fail? Why are you deliberately trying to fail? And the other teachers joining in and telling me, what's going on with you? Why do you want to fail your exams? And even though I wasn't aware of what I was doing, I really wasn't. In retrospect, now I know what that was. Then I didn't know what it was. But now I know that I was actually sabotaging myself. I did not want to succeed. I wanted to fail, but I didn't know that I wanted to fail. And I didn't fail. I passed and I went on to do my A-levels. And, but by the time I was going to do my A-levels, I think I was really questioning my worth so much at that point. And my sense of unworthiness just kept getting worse and worse, regardless of what anybody told me. And by the way, growing up, my brothers, and my cousins, they told me all sorts of things. Oh, you're such an ugly girl and all those things. And I remember one of my brothers telling me how my smile is so bad, it looks like, and whatever it is. And I would always smile with my hand on my mouth. And when I went to school, the girls in my school actually really affirmed me. They told me, oh, you have a good smile, you have a good this, you have this. And the girls kept telling me nice things about myself. And I felt like I had found my tribe. I was not a duckling anymore. I had found my tribe, even though the unworthiness persisted. But this was my tribe. I knew I was in the right place. And this sense of unworthiness, at that point, I was getting torn between what I knew in my know and what I was constantly being told at home. So my choices in life had a lot to do with my belief systems, including my choice for a partner for life. My choice for a partner for life was based on a person who will get along with my brothers, a person who my family will like, whose parents will get along with my parents. And it wasn't about me. It was about everybody else but me. And when I finally got this person, literally, I could have written what it was that I was looking for. And at 23 years old, I thought, first of all, I thought I was the oldest, person on the block. I thought I was just going to be an old spinster. So, and I needed to please my family and get married quickly. So I got married quickly. I found this person. He was perfect for my family. I married him. And he was great for my brothers. They really got along, really got along very well. And his parents were, perfect for my parents. But we didn't get along. We did not get along for one day. We had a terrible relationship and a very toxic relationship. And after many years of both physical and emotional abuse, I became stuck. I became immobilized, and I couldn't move. And this sense of unworthiness became even more. And it didn't help that, he'd tell me I'm a terrible wife, I'm a terrible mother, you're literally good for nothing. And it's interesting because I believed it, he said, you're fat, even though I was a size 8. And I believed it because I was used to being told all these things. So I believed it. But I remember at one point when I was completely devastated. I was doing well in my career, but I was miserable. I was really miserable. And I knew that I had to do something about it. I have a brother who I call my rational brother. And one day I couldn't get out of bed. I was so depressed. I couldn't move. I didn't take calls. I didn't do anything. And he came home one day and he said to me, you're stuck because you're refusing to make certain decisions. And he said to me, the reason why you're stuck is because you're thinking about us. You're thinking about what your mother will think, what your father will say, what your brothers will think about it. And you're refusing to make a decision for yourself. And he said to me, if today everybody died, like in a car crash or something, why would you get up and live? And you'd still have breath in you, so you'd have to live again. Why would you live? And he said, you need to make a decision so you can move forward. That's why you're stuck. And I remember after he left, thinking about my life. And it's interesting because I went back to my knowing. I went back to that moment when my life shifted and I knew that there's something I had believed that wasn't true. And I started asking myself, what am I believing now that is not true? Why am I in this situation? What am I believing? And it took courage to introspect. And to challenge the facts, because facts are not truth. There are some things that I'd been told, like, for example, you're a terrible mother. But was that the truth? I had to question, was that the truth? And I thought, no, that is not true, because I'm not his mother. He cannot speak into my ability to mother because I'm not his mother. And I told him, I'm not your mother. So I started questioning a lot of the things that I had believed up to that point. And one of the things that also happened is that I started believing again in God. I had stopped believing in God at some point. And not that I stopped believing in God, but I just had very many questions about God and whether or not he actually loved me, and was I worthy of that love? So I started believing again, and I started praying again. And I must say, I started getting direction again. So it took courage to introspect. There are things I didn't want to look at. And then finally, I had to take action at that point. And I decided to give myself a chance, to get out of this situation that I knew was bad for me and live for me. It was something that I decided was for me. And also to grow up. It's interesting because growing up means that you actually have to take responsibility for yourself. You stop blaming other people. You stop blaming what people say to you. You stop blaming what your past has done, and actually grow up and say, you know what? That happened, but I am here now. And because I am here now and I'm a grown up, I have to now make decisions for me and for myself and for what I know to be best for myself. And so that courage to grow up and to feel that I'm safe. It's safe for me to be myself. I don't have to pretend anymore to be anything else. And I remember that when I finally decided to get a divorce, I met someone who said, how can you do this? And what will your nieces and, what kind of example are you setting? And I didn't answer them because I knew they couldn't understand. They had no idea what I was going through, what happened after the doors got closed, because outside the picture was very different. But I remember writing in my journal, because even then I used to write things down. I had, people who grow up not talking much, then learn to write things down. And I used to write to myself, and I would write, "Dear heart, this is what happened today." So I remember writing in my journal, "Dear heart, this is the decision that I have made. And so things that I'm going to set a bad example to my nieces. But I hope that my nieces will have the courage to choose right, to live right, and that they shall not wait for 10 years to get out of a toxic relationship." That's what I wrote in my journal. Finally, the courage to grow up. And as I made this decision to start over, it wasn't an easy decision, but I believed that there was more. I believed that there was no scarcity of anything. There was no scarcity of love. There was no scarcity of opportunities. There was no scarcity of anything. And so I knew that I could start over. It wasn't easy. From the time I had that discussion with my brother, who told me that whatever decision you make, I will stand by you. But I didn't make that decision until many, many months later. And as I made that decision, I left knowing that even if I leave with nothing, even if I have to start from scratch, it's gonna be okay. And that belief in abundance, that belief in scarcity, I've made over and over again. Even, I mean, believe in abundance, that there is no scarcity of anything. I have made it over and over and over again. Moving jobs, moving countries, because I believe that the opportunities are there. As long as I am willing to be uncomfortable for a minute, as long as I am willing to start over, even if it's in a different country, there is always abundance. Nature has no limits. The only limit is us. So if I was willing to believe, then I could start over. And I look at this journey because it is a journey of transformation. And I'm a happy person. I am not sad because I let go of the past. I always say that I have a gift of letting go, and it's a wonderful gift, because when I let go of the past, I can move on to be the best version of myself in that particular season. And the seasons keep changing. I'm still being transformed. You know, the Bible talks about growing from glory to glory. And it's interesting because it's a life, death, life, death. That's the nature of life. Seasons come and seasons die. And like the caterpillar who thinks they will never fly. If you ask the caterpillar whether it can fly, it will say, never, I could never be like that. And then it changes from within, because the change comes from within. And at some point in the journey of transformation, there is so much confusion. I'm sure that when the caterpillar is going through that journey of transformation, there is a particular time when it becomes formless. It's not what it used to be, but it is not yet what it's becoming. It's a formlessness, a time of confusion. And in my journey of transformation, in my journey of growing up, in my journey of growing, there's been many times of formlessness where I'm not what I used to be, but I'm not yet what I'm becoming. I know I'm becoming, but I'm not yet what I'm becoming. And also, I like this analogy of the butterfly, because from the cocoon, when the butterfly is ready, it has to push out. It takes effort to actually get out of that particular stage of life into the next one. And if the butterfly doesn't push out, it cannot fly, because it is in pushing out that its wings become strong. And if you cut out the cocoon, the butterfly will never fly, because the wings will not have been strengthened. So these trials, these things that we go through in life, it only makes us stronger. It has made me stronger. It has given me courage. I have been to all these places that I used to read about in my books. I have seen all these things, not all of them. Because of Corona, I stopped traveling. but I'm sure that Corona will end and I will go to see all these places that I used to read about in my books, because there is abundance and because I believe that there is no scarcity of anything, and I'm willing to change. So what have I learned in this journey? I have learned that words have power to build and to tear down. And the words that you speak to me is not so much what you say to me, it is what I hear that is important. I'm sure that my mother and my family, they love me. I have never had any doubt about that. And they never actually meant to hurt me. Just as I'm sure I've spoken words that I never meant to hurt people, but maybe the way those words have been taken and interpreted, because the narrative that I tell myself is more important than the words that are spoken to me. And so I have learned that words are very powerful. You can use the words to build somebody or to tear down somebody. Now that I'm aware, I try as much as possible to use words to build and not to tear down. But I also use words for myself, because then the internal narrative is even more powerful. To tell myself affirmative things. I tell myself, I look at myself in the mirror and I say, woman, you're beautiful. I look at myself in the mirror and I say, you are worthy of success. And I look at myself and I say, I love you. And I look at myself and I say, all those things. And I affirm myself and I drive those negative things using my own words. And I say it aloud. I look at myself and I say those words aloud, because there is power in words. And then the other thing I have learned is that facts are not always truth. I may have made mistakes, but it doesn't mean that those mistakes have become me. It's a fact that I made a mistake. It's a fact that I failed. It is not a fact that I will never succeed again. That is not the truth. The truth is that I will succeed. And I've learned to trust in my no. Even when everybody else is telling me, you shouldn't do this. And I'll give you an example. I got a job in South Africa. And when I was transferred to work in South Africa, what I was given, the remuneration that I was given, I said, I cannot go for that. I'm not going. And one of my family members said to me, why are you being like this? That's a good opportunity for you. Go. It's a good opportunity. But in my no, I knew that I was worthy more than that. So I wasn't going to go. So I said to them, no, I'm not getting out of Kenya to go to South Africa for this. And once we had renegotiated, they actually added more than $40,000 to my salary. And they added more than another $2,000 for my housing allowance. So at the end of the day, I believed that I did not have to listen because I knew in my no. And it's interesting because once you know, you can't unknow. Once you know that you're worthy, you cannot unknow. Now you know the truth. So trust in your no, even when everybody else is saying, don't do that or do this. And the other thing I've learned is that I'm more than my experiences. My potential is not determined by where I've been. My potential is not determined by my qualifications. Because I believe that when God calls me, he qualifies me. And the future will call for probably more experience and more experiences and more qualifications than I have. And we don't have enough in this lifetime to learn everything that you're ever going to need. You will learn it as you get into those positions. It is already there. And there is no scarcity of what you can learn. So when you get there, you will learn it. And that's been my experience. And then I've learned that I have the power to choose. So I'm not stuck, because in every situation, there is always a choice. It may take effort, it may take being uncomfortable, but there is always a choice. So even when I'm in an uncomfortable situation, I have a choice. So whatever it is, as long as you're willing to be uncomfortable, you have a choice. And of course, I believe in abundance. But abundance means that you cannot stay where you are and hope to grow. You must let go and be willing to let go. Because opportunities, the whole universe, I like the desiderata. You're a child of the universe. You have a right to be there. The universe is so large. There is no scarcity in the universe. So maybe where I am, there is scarcity, but that doesn't mean that there's scarcity everywhere. So if I'm willing to move from where I am, then I can experience abundance again. And I am worthy of the best in life. Why am I not worthy of the best in life? Who is the best in life spared for? Who is it for? Why not me? Why must I be the one to take the crumbs that fall off the table? I am worthy of the best in life. And finally, find your tribe and you will thrive. Maybe, like me, I knew that I belonged to a different tribe. I realized I wasn't the ugly duckling. And there are people out there, and I'm grateful to the teachers who affirmed me. I'm grateful to the girls who affirmed me. And I'm grateful to the friends who today keep affirming me. Even when I have doubts, I have people who still affirm me. I'm grateful. So, thank you very much. Those have been my learnings. Let's talk.
Amazing, amazing journey, Esther. And thank you so much for sharing. There's a lot that you poured into us. I particularly resonated with the guilt of success. And I started thinking to myself, what other things have we held ourselves guilty of? And what other belief system is controlling how we behave or act? I like that when you said formlessness is part of becoming. And in the chat box, there's quite a lot of feedback for you. And people just speaking from what you're sharing and picking what ministered to them the most. So thank you so much for sharing that. Just before we got on the call this afternoon, you shared with me your experience with a counselor when you were going through your divorce. And I think that is a story that our friends on the call would benefit from. Would you mind sharing that part of your journey as well? And if you don't mind, you could stop sharing so we can ask for others to contribute as well.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. Yes, talking of belief systems, when I was going through my divorce, like I said, I had started believing. I went back to church, and I was actually serving. I wanted to be in the background. So of course, the most background ministry is the prayer ministry. You never see. So I can be in the background. And I went to this counselor in the church, a lady, and I told her about what was going on in my life. And she'd say to me, you cannot, your divorce is a sin. God hates divorce. And God, basically, she really laid down the guilt on me. And I was really, really broken. I was already broken. Deciding to get a divorce is not easy. And she just laid the guilt on me. And after 3 sessions of thing, I decided something was very wrong. And so when I read about divorce, yes, God hates divorce, and I prayed about it. And the revelation I got was that, yes, it is true. Again, separating the facts from the truth. And I learned that, yes, it is true that God hates divorce. It's there in the Bible. You cannot argue with it. It says God hates divorce. But then I asked, does God hate divorcees? Is it true that God hates me because I'm divorced? And it was a resounding no, because God is love and God doesn't hate. God hates sin. God doesn't hate sinners. He loves sinners. Jesus died for sinners. He didn't die for the saints. So for me, that just affirmed that sometimes other people are trying to, get their beliefs into you. And so I came back and I said to this lady, you know what? It is true that God hates divorce. It is not true that I am now hopeless and I can never serve God again. And as I said this to her, I said to her, God loves me. He always will. And nothing can separate me from that. And as I said that, she broke down and she started telling me about her issues. And she told me, oh, my husband is cheating on me and this is happening and she broke down. And I realized, again, I have to go back to my no. And I have to search for my truth for myself. And that is why that's how I approach my spirituality as well. I am not religious. I am spiritual.
Thank you for sharing that journey with us, Esther. I mean, when she shared that with me earlier, I'm like, wow. And she expressed it so nicely. She said, God is unhappy because divorce leads to a lot of unhappiness, and he doesn't want his children to be unhappy. And so, yes, he hates that process, but you don't stop being his child. And no one can tell you that you're unworthy of God's love. Thank you so much, Esther, for reminding us of that. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand. We have just a few more minutes. You can raise your hand using the raise hand icon right down on the screen, or you can just hit the Q&A and we just share our experiences for the next 10 minutes and we're out of here. I want to give a special shout out to all our CDI colleagues on the call who joined us today. Esther and I both are students of CDI in Kenya, and I see that Aideen is on the call with us as well. Thank you for joining. I see Joanne, thank you as well. Thank you so much for being on the call with us. Rosamond is on the call as well. Thank you to all the ACP coaches in Ghana as well for joining this call. Formlessness is part of becoming. No scarcity mindset. There's abundance out there. You just need to believe and go for it. Guilt of success. What other guilt systems are operating in our spaces? And just to share just a bit from what other people are saying in the chat box. This one says, Esther is so wise. What you said is just profound. God is love. There's no abound. Also, there is abundance and trust in my no. Trust in my no for me just tells me about this inner GPS. It's like, it tells you this is where you should be going. And so that's trust in the no, in your no, sorry. Joanne says she wouldn't have missed it. Such a deep well of knowledge. Thank you. And Aileen said, thank you for inviting and hosting us, Doreen. Thank you, Esther, for sharing from your heart. God bless you. God bless you as well, Aileen. Questions, feedback, comments. Rose says, trust in my no. That's so insightful. Trust in my no. Thank you, Rosemond. It's okay to ask a question if you want to as well, and this is the time to do that. You can use the Q&A area for the questions. If one says we need to know ourselves and not please anyone. Thank you for that. What stands out for me as well is the power of words. And you say the power of words to build, but also to tear down. Thank you for reminding us of the power of the tongue. All right, let's see. There are no questions in the chat, in the Q&A. So I guess that's it for now. I'm just going to ask you to hit the chat box and share the one thing you're walking away with. If you forget everything else, what's the one thing you walk away with? And that's how we wrap up today's call. Esther, on behalf of everyone who joined the call and on behalf of myself, I want to say thank you for joining us to share your story, to inspire others, to get us to take action. There's a lot you've shared with us today. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing from a deep place. It's your story and we're grateful that you shared. Thank you and God bless you. I'm going to stop recording now as we read people's takeaways.